Guys, let me ask you a question. Let's say you and your coworker literally carpooled into work. And let's say once upon a time you had a situation where your car actually broke down and it just needed major repairs, and you now had to rely on this carpooling coworker every day for your livelihood. Now fast forward to election time and you find out that you're voting on one side of the political aisle while your coworker, the guy that brings you to work every day, is voting on the opposite. Now you actually can't stand people that vote opposite of you, but at the same time, this friend has literally been helping you get to work so that you can support yourself and your family. See, there's something beautiful in that relationship. And there's also something beautiful in the idea that whatever your political beliefs are, you don't have to let them literally affect every single part of your life. When I hear these stories of people losing their friends, especially Facebook friends and stuff like that, right? Because of some post that they put up, it's kind of irritating to me, because when I grew up, and when you guys grew up, you guys are the venters, we're all in the same age group, we had a situation where people used to say things like, hey, let's agree to disagree. And we need to get back there. So how can we do that? Well, number one, we've got a pretty diverse group of venters. So even though we're a very tiny slice of society, if we can all get together despite our political differences, right? Because we all want to come together and walk, and we want to be able to do it consistently together. Well, I think that's one of those things where we can give ourselves permission to look past the way we vote politically. Now what I want you to do is look up here. It's usually over here where I put it actually. This gentleman's name is Sean, and this lady's name is Kim. They are husband and wife. Sean is a Trump supporter, whereas Kim was a Hillary Clinton supporter. Like most of my videos, I had to jump into the YouTube archives. So this is talking about the political divide that we had going into the 2016 election. What's really cool about this video from Time, by the way, Time magazine has their own YouTube channel, so it's from Time. They brought up the fact that even to this day, 30% of marriages actually divide along the political lines. Now, some might say, golly, that would explain a lot of the divorce that we're going through, and that might explain some of it. I look at it from a more positive viewpoint. Would you have ever guessed that nearly 1 out of every 3 marriages involves people from 2 different political parties? What that tells me is that if you can love somebody enough to want to marry them, then you should be able to love the people of your country enough to let them disagree with you, even if it's on something as crazy as politics. Because I think we can all agree, when it comes down to the elections, sometimes we get a little bit too into it, you know, myself included. A couple of the things that this couple differed on were global warming and climate issues, gun control, and then voting preference itself, where a lot of people feel like if you're conservative or Republican, you probably shouldn't marry somebody that's liberal, progressive, or a Democrat. They actually argued that technically we all grew up thinking that opposites attract, and I think they have a point. You don't always have to agree with somebody, and if you can have a nice debate between you and your wife or you and your husband, that should be something that makes your relationship stronger. Now, if you obviously do argue over these things to the point where your blood boils, then I would have to say that maybe you guys jumped into marriage a little too soon. You see, in this video, they made it sound like they had already committed to marriage, and then they found out about their political preferences. And guys, I gotta call BS on that. To me, it seems like one of the things that you would find out, if not on a first date, at least within the first month or 2 of knowing this person, right? And yes, I'm sure some people do jump into marriages and stuff, but I don't think I would recommend that, at least not going forward. So here's my first question to you. Are you a little shocked that nearly 1 out of 3 marriages involve a situation where people from 2 different political parties are getting married? The big takeaway from the video is that a lot of times households, especially married couples, are dealing with much bigger problems than what their political views are or who their friends around them are voting for. Case in point, could you imagine if you and your significant other were going through a divorce or a really hard time because maybe you guys had lost a family member or a child, and all of a sudden you go to work and all of a sudden you're in a big political argument with your coworkers? I mean, sometimes there are things that are actually more important than what's going on in the country. Not always. You still want to be cognizant of what's going on, but sometimes things are more important, you know? It's 81 degrees out today, and I wasn't expecting it to be warm, so when I came outside, I thought it would be like cool, but 81 degrees when you've been feeling temperatures in the 40s and 50s lately, all of a sudden 81 degrees feels like 105. Holy moly, it's crazy how the body acclimates and changes here and there. And all of a sudden, things that felt comfortable to you just days earlier, all of a sudden don't feel so fun. They feel kind of miserable. Like when you marry a Democrat and you're a Republican, you know what I mean? By the way, is anybody else like me where, you know, maybe when you were 18, 19, 20, when you were first starting to look into voting and stuff, maybe you were Democrat or maybe you were Republican? But then as you got older, you married, you had kids, maybe you joined a certain church, and before you know it, maybe your political views changed. See, the thing is, we're so different in our 40s than we were in our 20s. So when I see young people get passionate and they're ready to take away sex for the next 4 years, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you're dating Democrat boys anyway. Why do you want to take away sex from them? And then you start to realize that's the woman's agenda. They don't want to give us sex anymore. And it's horrible. How come none of you are standing up about this? Did you guys hear that though? Women are threatening to take away the box, as they say, for 4 years. Holy moly, that doesn't scare married men. They're already used to not getting the box. The only box they get is that ballot box, and they stuff it. Riedel 600 says, I'm a Democrat and my boyfriend is Republican. Yeah, right. We have completely opposite views, I bet, but we agree to disagree, and he means the world to me. See, I love that sentence. We agree to disagree. Can you and I both agree that nowadays we don't hear that sentence very much anymore? Why can't people agree to disagree? And I kind of put this on the young people, because some of us that are middle age or older, we still believe in a back and forth dialogue. With the younger people, let's say age 30 and younger, I feel like they believe in closing doors, not opening windows. You know what I mean? And when you start to close doors, and this goes across all parties, young people is what I'm saying. When you close doors, you literally create animosity and anger, and then all of a sudden you'll have situations where people are like, do you think civil war is possible? Guys, I don't think civil war would have even been thinkable 20 or 30 years ago. It's only in the modern times where these young people have just become so like it's my way or the highway, which again, when has that ever been a positive? Never in my life has somebody that was been my way or the highway, it's never been seen as a positive, right? But that's how people act all the time now. Jesse, you want to throw everyone in jail. Yeah. Danielle Kearns, 3678, says, my parents are different parties. It allows me to look at both sides of issues and form my own beliefs. See, here's where parents don't have the confidence that they once used to. Parents used to be able to say, hey, we're going to show you our core beliefs. You know, it's going to be the system in which you get raised up. But part of becoming a young adult is to get out there and experience other people's cultures and other people's beliefs. That's how parents used to be, a real down-to-earth approach. Now parents are, if you're that way, get out of my house. That's not right on the parent side. And the kids think they know better than the parents. Kids, I can assure you, however you think about the world around you when you're in your teens and 20s, The odds of you feeling that way in 20 or 30 years when you're the same age as your parents now are so remote. Your thoughts are going to change as you get older. And venters, maybe you can even pipe in here and back me up. It's very rare that we feel the same way about the world when we're middle-aged as we do when we're young. It's because we go through experiences. And that goes both ways. Sometimes people grow up in a real conservative, religious-based household, and they naturally rebel and become more open-minded in their own way. The opposite happens. Sometimes you have families where it's nothing but chaos and disarray, and those kids rebel and they want to have strong relationships because you hear the saying, I wanted to raise my children differently than I was raised. So again, just remember, things change through time. Be open-minded to what people think, and don't just choose one side or the other. Be open-minded. You're going to change as time goes by. Believe it or not. I mean, maybe not you, but you know what I mean. Frog Turtle says, turns out people are more than just their politics. What a crazy concept. So I got a little bit away from the video. The video is basically the idea that, hey, you would never think that people that were voting for Hillary and people that are voting for Trump would be in the same room as friends, let alone husbands and wives. But the reality is a lot of our families are cut in half like this. Heck, if you grow up in Alabama, there's a good chance that one of your parents is an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, and there's a good chance that your other parent is an Auburn fan. You know, there are these little cuts that happens here in Arizona too. My son went to U of A, my daughter went to ASU. I consider myself to be more of an ASU fan. But because of the fact that my son went to U of A, I still find myself cheering for them, which is something that I would not have done when I was younger. It was just evil to cheer for the U of A Wildcats, even though they win every damn thing. God, I'm so sick of that team. Sick of them. Do you ever find yourself being a little closed-minded? I mean, do you listen to me and you think, oh my God, that guy's going to be conservative forever? Because you know, I told you guys a couple months back that after reading and watching some videos on the college debt situation, right, where they have these outstanding college loans, and you hear these stories of these little liberal kids, and these little liberal kids are like, I've paid $150,000 of my $80,000 loan, and I still owe $80,000. See, I look at that and I say, oh, that poor little liberal kid, let's bail him out, because he's getting taken advantage of by a predatory loan, right? Any type of loan where you pay double and you still owe the original, there's something really bad about that. But if you would have asked me that 8, 9, 10 months ago, I would have told you, hell no, why should I have to pay for your college? I didn't get a degree, you did. You know, so we can change the way we feel. My thinking when it comes to the college loan thing is, once again, if you saw some of the videos I did, you know, where people are paying back twice what they owe and they still owe the original balance, something's kind of awful and ugly about that. But you want to know what some people told me? Some people told me, Jesse, those videos could be exaggerated and they could be straight up lies. And you know what? You're right. So kids, pay your damn bill. Peter Dragon 6367 says, I wonder if they're still married. You know, Peter, let's be honest. The odds are they're not. But I think you could throw politics out the window. The reason people get divorced is usually for financial reasons or infidelity, or sometimes they just, you know, get really tired of waking up to the same person every day. But other than that, they're fine, right? Now, some people can get over these differences, but some people do end up heading for divorce. Here's the question I have for you guys at home. If they are divorced nowadays, which I don't know if they are or not, but if they are, do you think it would be because of their political slants? Do you think that just became too much of a rift in the relationship? Or do you agree with me that it's probably for other reasons? If they're even divorced, they could be married and happily Republican now. You want to know something interesting? when you know your partner's heart and their mind, and you do love them, I could see how through time you guys would slowly become the same person, because that's kind of a phenomena that happens. If you ever look at really old couples, sometimes they start getting similar haircuts, they start dressing the same, they start wearing the same colors and going to the same sports together and cheering for the same teams. And I could see somebody very much being the opposite party of their spouse. And then as time goes on, I could definitely see them deciding to become members of the same party. If any of you guys could see that happening too, maybe pipe in. It's so weird because when I was younger, so many young people aren't really political, at least back then. But I feel like nowadays people are, but it's almost like they're forced to. Because if you're a young person, you have to make up your mind right away. Do you want to be on the political side where you look like a racist and a bigot and a homophobe, right? Or do you want to be on the other team where you're kind of seen as cool? Because I think we can all agree that to young people, the Democratic Party comes across as cool and hip, right? And the Republican Party comes across as, hey, you're back-ass people that believe in that, imaginary guy in the sky. And that's kind of how it's seen from a young person's point of view. I even watched a video the other day where the college kids were saying that if you're a Republican, you can't tell anybody. You just have to kind of keep it to yourself. And see, those comments really scare me because technically speaking, this country is supposed to be one where you can speak your mind and not have to worry about being attacked by a mob. So again, I would love it if, as a small group of venters, we could get beyond these differences, because no matter what, more than likely over the next 40 or 50 years, we're still going to have to deal with a handful of presidents that are Democrat and a handful that are Republican. And who knows, we might even get a couple that are independent during that time period. It's kind of the way you balance things out. You go back and forth on a spectrum, and it kind of works out good for America. You never want a situation where everybody's Democrat or everybody's Republican. Otherwise, you lose the beauty of the checks and balances that we have. See, sometimes if you go into office with great ideals, which the Democrat Party, I'll give it to them, they have good ideals, but they don't know how to put them into motion, in my opinion. And so what happens is you have a situation where one president has, a split House and Senate, and then the next president comes in and all of a sudden, there are no checks and balances. Trump has a Congress that's going to agree with him, a Senate that's going to back him up, and a Supreme Court that has him on the back end. And when you have all that power, it can become scary, but you want to know what created that power? Was people being so divisive and being unwilling to come to the middle. So what happens is the people start to dislike that and they rebel. So again, don't blame Republicans for where we're at. The truth is, a lot of Democrats and independents that voted one way last time have flipped, and now they're voting the other way. And there's a reason for those things. And I can guarantee you, in 4 more years, the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency are all going to be up for flipping back. So there's no reason to be mad long term when we live in a world where things switch every couple of years. Okay, this person's name is EV1533. That's a nightmare. Number one question I'm asking from now on during dating is if they're conservative or not. See, the problem I have with this EV1533 is if you really do eliminate half the people right off the bat, right? Let's say you're conservative and you want to make sure your partner is. So every single person that you meet that says, God, my parents are Democrat, but I'm not really political, but you're going to hear Democrat and you're going to immediately turn off the light and lock the door. And see, that's kind of a bad deal. You want to be open to people. Number one, what if they're not really political at all and they don't know the difference? I'm sure there's a lot of people like that, right? Number two, even if they are political and know the difference, if they're open to giving you a chance, but you're not open to giving them a chance, that sounds like something where you're lacking, not them, you know? And then there's always that thing that you might be that person that might be able to talk them into changing, but here's the problem with that. You never want to get with somebody hoping that you can change them. We already know through experience that that's not going to work. So again, what I think is the same plan I came up with yesterday. I think we need people to date a little bit longer, figure out who they are with a little bit more of an open mind, because the truth is, you're not stuck being in the political party that you are right now. That can change. And finally, the only thing I can think of that's even more important than the country itself is love in your family. You know, even if this country got taken over by China or some foreign entity, right? You know, there's still a chance that you and your spouse would still be together forever. You know, so that's a super important thing. And I'm hoping to goodness we're never taken over by China. I was really excited about how a lot of you guys were kind of writing about your roommate experience. You want to know what's interesting? You would never go up to your roommate and ask them, especially not when you're 17 or 18 years old and in college, right? You would never ask them, hey, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Because teenagers just don't think about that stuff. And if they do, maybe that's a reason that the young people are a little warped when it comes to the way they think about things. Maybe they're thinking about too much. You know, when I was young, we didn't even really have the internet. I mean, it was there, but it was so in its beginning stages that it didn't really get popular until I was already in my mid-20s, pushing 30, you know? And you guys kind of have gone through this same time. I graduated high school in 1995, and I can remember when we would get online, the screens were in black and white, and the whole idea of an icon that you would take your carrot over to and push, it just seemed really crazy how cool it was. But that is nothing that we have today. So these young people, they get influenced. And if their favorite entertainer is telling them to vote for somebody, and that the opposite person is just about racism or this and that, warmongering, all those things don't really help anybody at all. All right, so young people, I don't want you guys to judge people by political parties, but let's say you're my age, 45 or 50. At that point, you know what politics are, you know what side of the line you're on, you know marriages are kind of 50-50 whether they succeed or fail. So as an adult, I have to give you completely different advice than I do young people. As an adult, you really do need to be equally yoked. Find yourself somebody that feels similarly about you, because what's happened at the beginning of relationships, and you guys know this is true, usually at the beginning you've got that I like this person cocktail going in your brain, right? And this I like the person vibes that you're feeling, they have you overlook these things. But overall, that cocktail of I love this person is going to wear off and fade, and you're going to be in a situation where you're stuck with somebody that feels differently from you, and you're going to find yourself arguing all the time. Anyway, I wish you guys a wonderful day. I'm sorry that this video didn't take too well. I'm going to look for some more videos on this subject though, because I do find it fascinating that 30% of the marriages that we have are with people of two different political parties. With that being said, can we all agree that the polarization we have between the two parties is just way too much? Isn't it weird that there's not one single thing that we all agree on? I find that crazy. Makes you wonder if it's just assimilation. I'll see you tomorrow.